Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviriyam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The word on the board will be the subject matter. So we all say together, Nishkama Upasaka. Nishkama Upasaka. Kama means desire. Nishkama means without desire. So this means that one who is without desire, and they are an upasaka, which means a meditator, a contemplator. So obviously they are contemplating on something other than worldly desire, because you can't be ever without desire, so there has to be some kind of desire. So nishkama means without worldly desire, dharma, artha, kama. But there is a desire for what? Union with Ishvara, union with the infinite. And this upasaka, who is a nishkama, their only interest is in liberation, in union, in coming together, in merging. However, owing to their mind still being gross, still being not so qualified, then their only option is to focus on a form that represents the infinite. Because when we say infinite, it means without form. As soon as we add a form, no longer can it be infinite, because as soon as I present you some kind of form, it is now a square. It is not a triangle. It is not a tree. It's not something else. So the moment we add a form to anything, we have limited the formless. But because the person is unable to apprehend the formless, unable to grasp the formless, then they use a symbol, a form symbol that represents the formless. So, what today is about is, suppose that one day, because we all have like 20 or 30 more, 50 or 60 years to live, okay? So suppose that one day you say, you know, I've just been trying to grasp, to understand this formless Brahman. And I've been trying to contemplate on nothing. And it's just not working for me. And this actually happens, you know, sometime down the road. The person is always enthusiastic, they're excited. But then very soon they realize it's just not clicking for me. I just don't resonate with this formless. And so today is about providing something that you can fall back on, so that you don't just say, you know, I don't get it, I'm not qualified, I'm just going to go back into the world. So Nishkama Upasaka is one who has an upasanam, a contemplation that can be used for those who just cannot grasp the formless, who cannot grasp nirgunam without any attributes, who are frustrated at, like, why do you keep saying consciousness? How can you meditate on the formless? How can you meditate on awareness? I can't. In this case, today is about falling back onto a support, a foundation for that kind of mind. So this means there's no reason to get frustrated, because it's a backup plan, as I said a few sessions ago. So we're all clear what the purpose of Nishkama Upasana is. Mind is gross, can't ascertain the subtle. Therefore, we give you something. So from chapter 8, verse 5, Krishna, who is symbolizing Ishvara, has been answering Arjuna's question, which includes what is the significance of remembering Ishvara at the time of death, what is the benefit of doing so, and how do we do so? To remember God specifically at the time of death, we have to be a Nishkama Upasaka. A worldly person is not going to remember about God because their mind has been used, has been constantly entertaining worldly stuff. So therefore, it's just a natural conclusion. Right? Our minds always focuses on what it's been doing in the past. And some of the features of this Nishkama Upasaka are the only goal in life is spiritual liberation. Not as in don't have any friends, don't go out or anything. It's just like whatever is in this world, it is all there to support and remind me that it is all temporary. So it's all just for spiritual liberation, the highest goal. Also, a Nishkama Upasaka has Vairagyam. Vairagyam means one is dispassionate or value neutral towards worldly gains or losses. If I like someone and I fancy them and I go up to them and they don't like me, value neutral. If someone likes you, you're value neutral. If someone doesn't like you, still value neutral. Can someone give me an idea how you can possibly be value neutral towards both a compliment and a criticism? What would you have to think? What kind of process would have to go in your mind to go, cool?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay. Doesn't matter. What else? What would you have to understand to genuinely, not as in kind of like, I don't care, but just genuinely know that it's fine, it doesn't affect me.
Because I'm not the mind?
Yeah, very good. Very good. And who are they complimenting?
Mind.
Yeah, one of the three bodies, either the gross body, your mind, your subtle body, or a habit. A habit comes from your karana sharira, your causal body. So therefore, this is how we instantly inquire. Great, you're complimenting me, but you're not complimenting me. You're complimenting the surface. You're complimenting the clothing that's being worn on Atman.
Or the succumbing to their own vices.
Yeah, right. And also, so what? Because tomorrow I may be lousy and I may not exhibit such great performance, and then you insult me. So that means wherever there's an insult, there's also a potential criticism. One day we look beautiful. Oh, you look so beautiful. But the next day, if we kind of wake up, lousy, and then we don't get that same compliment. So then why did I subscribe to feeling so good when someone compliments me, and now I don't feel like that? So this means every time we give power away to feel good or to feel bad when someone compliments us or insults us, this means that we are anti-vairagyam. We are not practicing dispassion. Okay, so this means value neutral towards worldly opinions. Also, Nishkama Upasaka meditates on Ishvara with attributes. As I said, their minds is not subtle enough to ascertain something that is ungraspable, something that is beyond the mind. I can't see it, I can't touch it, I can't feel it, I can't sense it, I can't smell it, I can't taste it. So what? In other words, they only have one choice, and that is give him something that represents the infinite. And obviously the primary goal for a Nishkama Upasaka is infinite Ishvara. That is it, as I said before. Also, they don't mistake the form for the infinite. They only understand that the form, whoever that is, who's ever on this picture, we do not mind, that is your personal deity, only what represents the infinite. It doesn't mean that if Shiva is not there, then, that's not God. In other words, no matter who is on the picture, who is on your altar, who is in your meditation room, that one, for you, represents what? The infinite. So therefore, why do we even have this symbol in the first place? The answer is, you know how flexible the mind is. The moment it sees something else, it instantly makes its whole world about that. That's true, isn't it, in our experience? It instantly becomes entangled in the new thing in life. Therefore, we need to have something ready in our room, in our altars, in our a picture of something that instantly you look with your eyes, instantly takes your mind onto that form that represents why am I here? That is for infinite Ishvara. So therefore you're helping yourself. And they also understand, if you've heard Asato Ma Sadgamaya, This means everything other than God is asat, unreal, false. It can be falsified, mithya. God alone is sat, satyam, truth, permanent, forever, eternal. And then tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. In other words, everything other than God is tamas or tamaha, which is darkness, which is veiling, ignorance. God alone is jyotihi, which means, that's a common name in India, jyotihi, which means self-effulgence or brilliance or brightness. That one that illumines everything. When we're locked up in a dark room, what's the first thing we want? Give me the light. We always head towards the light. Nobody wants to stay in a dark room where they see nothing. So therefore we instantly resonate with that which is bright, that which is self-effulgent. It's built in. And then mrityorma amritam gamaya, which means everything other than God is mortal, subject to departure, comes and goes. God alone is amritam, immortality. Okay, so out of this understanding, they always head towards that which is true, sat, that which is jyotihi, brilliance, and that which is immortal. We also said that this nishkama upasaka has two paths. First one, practice the saguna ishvara upasana. That means meditating on God with features. Meditate on God with features, whatever that personal God is for you, until your mind is ready, until your mind is primed. And then you drop that practice. Then you turn to what? Vedanta. When I say Vedanta, I'm not talking about this class. Vedanta just means the highest knowledge. You turn towards nirguna ishvara, towards the formless. Therefore, don't stick with this form. If you feel ready, move on, because that's the progress of spiritual life. Some of us, we just get so addicted to our deities, we just don't want to let them go. But the whole point is to understand there's no difference between my deity and the leaf, and another person, and the neighbor, and a piece of paper. It's all one and the same. So that's the whole point. And also this nirguna ishvara, we don't talk about in chapter 8, because chapter 8 is only about saguna ishvara, for those who cannot ascertain the nirguna. Nirguna will be in chapter 9. This is only saguna, someone that needs form to grasp onto something. The conversion process summary is saguna to nirguna. We're still on the first type of nishkama upasaka, remember? The conversion is from upasana to jnanam. In other words, from meditation to self-knowledge. Now what is jnanam or jnana yoga? Shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam. In other words, you can see that conversion process. And as a result of that conversion, what is gained? Jivan muktihi, liberated while living. The second type is the nishkama upasaka, again, the one on the board, continues saguna ishvara, meditation, until the last breath. Remember why? Not that they're addicted to this, because they're mature. Whenever we say nishkama, they're very mature. They're doing all they can to keep moving forward, but they can't. So for that reason, they continue meditating on a personal deity, whether it's a physical picture or a mental image, because their buddhi is not subtle enough. It cannot grasp onto nothing. I'll give you proof of this. Who can grasp an idea of earth, something solid? Think of something that's like solid, earth. Yeah, easy. No problem visualizing, right? Can you even visualize smelling it, tasting it, touching it? No problem. Do you have any problems visualizing or grasping water? Yeah, because it's tasteless, right? A little bit less. But Earth's got everything, right? So it's a lot more because it includes all our senses. What about fire? You got any troubles visualizing that? Grasping on fire? No, I can definitely feel it. I can definitely, it's there. I can imagine it burning and you know, can even produce genuine heat in the body. You got any trouble visualizing or grasping air? See, we now had to use a thought. We couldn't use our senses necessarily. We had to go one level higher to grasp air. You know, I got trouble grasping air?
Sort of visualizing inside a container like a balloon or something.
Good. What is the air? Gas. Vapor. Easy. How about space? Can you visualize that? Can you grasp space? See, here's the thing. Someone's going to say yes. But you know what the answer is going to be? Okay, let's test you. When you visualize space, did you use a background to help you? Yeah. So in order to visualize space, we need like a container. And then on the basis of these four edges, there's space in between. Therefore, that's space. But I needed a form. I needed earth in order to visualize space. Now, try visualizing something that is even beyond space. Consciousness. Right? Grasp onto something that is even beyond space. Awareness of space. Awareness of earth, of matter. So this shows us that this upasaka is completely genuine. That can easily visualize form, but when it comes to the subtlest of the subtlest, it is very, very hard. Therefore, what do we need? A subtle mind. And they don't have a subtle mind. So in other words, they're not appreciating the subtlety of Brahman. They can't, genuinely. And these types are usually the ones who love yoga. What's yoga about? Action, doing, purifying the gross mind to a subtle nature. So these types are very attracted to give me a technique, give me a tactic, give me a strategy. I want to do something. Right? They're not interested in this knowledge. They're like, it all sounds good, but I want to do something. Give me a breathing pattern, like alternative nostril breathing or something. So this represents the nature of a what? A gross mind. Therefore, whenever someone says, give me something to do, what are they talking about? What are they exposing? The grossified nature of the mind. Whenever the mind gets more subtle, you will naturally move away from the need, from the attraction to do stuff. It's a completely organic process. Also, another reason is insufficient health or insufficient finances. So in other words, this person may be genuine, but they don't have the money to travel and find an acharya elsewhere. They can't, because when people travel to India or some kind of place, they usually meet people. Now, suppose the person doesn't have money, they can't travel. This means what? Money is also important for our spiritual progress, because we often separate these two. Or health. They just can't sit for long to meditate, or they're mentally a little bit dull, a little bit disabled. So this also prevents the success of the person appreciating the formless. And how is it possible to remember Bhagavan when the conscious will is not available? Because at the time of death, we're sort of snapping in and out. How do you consciously remember Bhagavan when there's no conscious will? Whatever is in the subconscious, whatever you value most in life, that will bubble up when we are most vulnerable. Whatever we've been practicing most in our life, whatever we value, that's what comes up when nothing is working. Now, question is, how do you know your values? How do you discover your values? Like right now, if you want to know your values.
You feel upset and you see your values being transferred.
Excellent, good one. So in other words, whenever you feel hurt, someone has violated what? Your values. Because someone has shown something that violated what I stand for. If you stand for kindness and someone is not kind to you, then you get hurt. So what does this mean? I value kindness. Another way is, what makes your life worth living? Why am I alive? What makes life worth living one more day? For some of us, it's children. My children make my life worth living. The scriptures make my life worth living. The books that I have make my life worth living. The infinite is what makes my life worth living. The point is, what makes you want to live more than anything else? That is your value. Another way is ask, what makes sacrifice justifiable? What would I sacrifice for? A mom is willing to sacrifice what? Her time, energy for her children. In other words, her children are her value. How do you remember Bhagavan at the time of death? Again, Krishna says, through prior practice. Like with anything, whatever we have practiced a long time is the first thing that comes to us when we're not functioning. When we're ill and the mind's just not working, it's totally dull. The first thing that comes to mind is what we have practiced the most. Therefore, as a person thinks, the person becomes. A Nishkama Upasaka has been thinking about what? Infinite Ishvara. Therefore, they become one with what they've been thinking about. As a person thinks infinite, so a person becomes infinite. So that's the logic. If I think of infinite, I become one with infinite. How do you think about the infinite at work? Any ideas?
Surrender all actions to Lord.
Yeah, good, good. And also there's an understanding. Whatever you're looking at is 5 elements. 5 elements is of what? The 3 gunas. 3 gunas is of what? Maya. Maya is of what? Brahman. So you're just simply looking at nothing but matter, belonging, apara prakriti, belonging to what? Ishvara. Remember, apara is the lower nature, para prakriti is the higher nature. So therefore, it is possible to see God in the most mundane, ordinary, seemingly dead matter, like a rock or something. Just look at it. It is indeed inert, but it is still apara prakriti, lower nature of Ishvara. Therefore, your mind goes on to Ishvara. As a result of thinking about Ishvara, attains what we call Krama Mukti. They go to Brahmaloka, we discussed, and they attain self-knowledge there. Kavim Puranam Anushashitaram Anoraniyam Samanusmaredyaha Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parastat. Krishna will speak about 8 attributes of Lord who is to be remembered at the time of death by the Nishkama Upasaka. So this means to say that Nishkama Upasaka will remember God at the time of death means what? They have already gone through the scriptures. Otherwise, how can you know about the 8 attributes that we will go through unless you've already read about these 8 attributes? So the instruction is, these attributes are the attributes which a person thinks of in those final moments before dying, to remind themselves to whom are they going back to. The first attribute is kavihi. Kavihi means sarva jnanam, all knowledge, the one who is omniscient, the all-illumining principle. In other words, the total mind. So what is Ishvara? The total mind who is that one that illumines the entire universe. The second attribute, Puranam, the most ancient one. The one who is uncreated, and yet the one who creates everything. Third attribute, Anushashitaram, the one who gives karma phala to all jivas. Meaning what? The one who gives the results of our actions to us as a result of our performance of those actions, according to law of karma. And karma means what? Not only laws of the moral laws, but also physical laws. If I drop this, did I do anything about that? So the action is dropping, and what took over? The law of karma of the physical, called gravity. I didn't do anything. So who made gravity work? Did you create gravity? No. Where did gravity come from? From that one who is the giver of all. From the karma phala data, the giver of our results of our actions. And also moral laws. For example, suppose that there is someone who is underprivileged and you help them because they're disabled, they need help. And you just want to help them, there's no agenda. And you do help them. And we walk away. Do you feel good? Do you generally feel good that I helped?
Yes.
Why is that? Are you trying to feel good or you just innocently feel good? Who put that in? Who put that law in that if I help someone who is in a lower position, who needs help desperately, like an old lady or an old man, and I help them innocently and I feel good, did I try to feel good? No. Who put that in? That's why Ishvara is Anushashitaram, the one who gives karma phala to all jivas, of our actions. If I go and criticize someone, I speak harshly to someone and walk away, am I going to feel good? Even if a person denies, and sometimes they'll say, I don't care. But there is a feeling of smallness, a feeling of dirtiness. Are they trying to feel dirty? Are they trying to feel small? No. Automatically, what happens? I speak harshly, what kind of results do I get? Smallness. I feel not good. I'm not trying to, it's automatically taking over. Therefore, Ishvara is that one who is constantly delivering those feelings and those results of your actions. In other words, Ishvara is karma phala data, meaning what? The giver of actions as a result of our decisions. The giver of consequences as a result of our decisions. If I decide to help you without agenda, then I feel good. Who gave me that feeling? Ishvara. If I decide to speak harshly or insult someone in the world, and I feel small as a result of that, who gave me that? Ishvara's laws and orders. Quality number 4 of Ishvara or Bhagavan. Anoho aniyam sam. The one who is subtler than the most subtlest. We did an experiment. Earth, very gross. We went all the way we went water, we went to fire, we went to air. We can still imagine air, right? It's gaseous, you can still see vapor. Can you imagine space? Very hard to imagine space, very hard to grasp onto something that is so subtle. But space is not the end, because what is even subtler than space? What is the subtlest of the subtlest? Ishvara, Bhagavan, consciousness itself. Therefore, the one who is subtler than the most subtlest atom is Ishvara. The one whose nature is formless. There's no form that we can put onto it, because the moment I put form, I have just limited the formless into a form. Therefore, I have gone from infinite to finite. And the one who is beyond sense perception, that means Ishvara is beyond what? My sight, my hearing, my taste, my touch, and my smell. I can't smell God. I can't see God. I can't hear God. Because if I do, what have I just done? I've limited the unlimited into a single sound, into a single taste, into a single form. So in other words, this is saying that Saguna Ishvara, which means what? Bhagavan with attributes, is only a pointer to Nirguna Ishvara. Because remember, Nishkama Upasaka is one who can only ascertain the gross attributes of God. Their mind is not subtle to ascertain consciousness, the formless. Therefore, the fact that we have the formlessness, and this person cannot imagine the formlessness, implies in what? The Nishkama Upasaka then needs form to represent the formlessness. For example, the Australian flag. Is Australian flag Australia? But it represents Australia. So in other words, a small flag, I look at it, and what instantly does my mind get sent onto? Onto that which it represents. In other words, Australian flag, Ishta Devata flag, personal deity flag. The moment I look there, what does my mind go onto? The infinite Ishvara. That's the idea. Another example is peace, security, or fullness is what we all want. Does someone not want peace? Is anyone not looking for security? Is anyone not looking for fullness? Yeah, you see? So we're all looking for all of these qualities. They all represent what? The infinite Bhagavan. Because all comes from Bhagavan. Therefore, what are we all ever looking for in this world? Bhagavan. So in other words, every single experience that we are ever seeking in this world, we are ultimately seeking God. Why? Because God alone is infinite. Who wants to choose finite over infinite? There's not a single person who would prefer in this world to have a little part versus something that is not even something, but that which is infinite. Okay, next quality is sarvasya dhataram. We're speaking qualities of Ishvara. The one who is support or the cause of the entire creation, the substratum of the entire creation. Just as the ocean is the substratum for the waves. Why? Because the waves are born out of what? The ocean, are sustained by the ocean, and go back to where? To none other than the ocean. Not to some other, because there's only one ocean. So therefore they come out of the one single ocean, they're sustained by one single ocean, and they go back into the one single ocean. So therefore the one who is the existence principle, in whose presence everything exists, is Ishvara. Am I talking about some Ishvara over there, or am I talking about you? About everything. Okay, we'll do an experiment. Bhagavan is that one existence principle in whose presence everything exists. Now tell me this. When you wake up in the morning, what happens? The moment you open your eyes, the world is. Is the world in someone else, or is the world in you? So what did I just say? Bhagavan is the one existence principle in whose presence everything exists. Is this world that you're looking at, is that in someone else, or is that in you? In me. So therefore, we'll now establish this microcosmic, macrocosmic, or vyashti samashti relationship. Now I know what you're going to say. Yeah, but I don't feel like it. I don't feel like the whole world is in me. That doesn't matter. You know why? Power of Maya is operating. That's the beauty of Maya. It makes it appear, it seems to appear to limit Brahman as one single person. So remove this idea of I don't feel like it. That is completely irrelevant. Rather just say, how beautiful is Maya? A power in Brahman that it is seemingly capable of limiting the one total into a single entity. How beautiful is Maya? Appreciate it for what it is. The mind that has not fully gone subtle needs what? Needs some kind of a form that represents this existence principle. Because the existence principle needs a highly subtle mind. And if I don't have that kind of mind, then I need a form. Attribute number 6, achintya rupam. The one who is incomprehensible. The one who is beyond thoughts. Can you comprehend awareness? Why can you not comprehend consciousness?
Because if you do, you make it an object and then
in where? In the limited mind. So therefore, I cannot comprehend consciousness, I cannot understand consciousness, I cannot objectify consciousness, because if I do, where is that process being undertaken? In my buddhi. Hence, Ishvara cannot be objectified. Why not? Number 1, the mind is an instrument that is only designed to study or analyze form. The mind is an instrument that cannot study or analyze or see anything other than 5 sensory data. The mind cannot see beyond sight. It cannot hear beyond hearing. It cannot taste beyond taste. It is locked to whatever it can taste, smell, touch, hear, and feel.
What about abstract thoughts like mathematics or something?
Yeah, and that's also the mind, because that's abstract equals intellect. That's a good point. So also abstract thought is also something known to you. And that abstract thought is happening where? In the mind. So whether it is the mind of the abstract thought or whether it is a sense input, the fact is they both share something in common. They are both known to whom? To that one who knows about them, which is you. Consciousness. Or same with memory. You could have asked also about, what about memory? So whatever appears, whether it is a memory, a thought, an idea, or something that I see, all of it is what? Going to where? Inside the mind. So it doesn't matter whatever you ask, the point is it is still being known or still being processed in the mind. And every thought, if you think about it, is nothing but an object.
So if I take that one step further, you said this chapter is about meditating on Ishvara with features.
Yeah.
So if you say, therefore it isn't possible to meditate without features, because all meditation is really the mind, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't you mean meditating on abstract thoughts, which encompass these attributes of, like mathematics is a...
Okay, that is still Nishkama Upasaka.
Well, yeah, so we can't name these other...
Yeah.
But isn't everything an abstract thought in the end?
Yeah, everything is that, except you. You're not a thought.
But you can be aware of awareness
But
without thinking.
as you
Yeah, but
say,
it's
you
still an
can't
object.
grasp us, you can't grasp it, the mind can't
No, you can only
grasp.
be what you are. You can't grasp it. So anything...
So you're not meditating on thoughts, you're just nothing. You're just not doing a thing, in a way.
Yeah, but that's not the category of Nishkama Upasaka. That's chapter 9. We're talking about chapter 8 that only includes meditating on object. Whether it is an object of form or object of abstract thought. Like he's all loving, all compassionate, omniscient, omnipresent. All of that is still an object. Why do I call it an object? Because it is known to you. So therefore, what does an object mean? Anything known to me is an object. Everything other than the subject is the object. So, summary, even if it's abstract, belongs where? Nishkama Upasaka. The one who is fully ascertained this knowledge needs not to meditate on anything, because you're always knowing about everything all the time. So what's the difference is it going to make if I try to meditate on an abstract concept? Because the fact is you're always aware. But that belongs in chapter 9, not in chapter 8. Okay, so we just have to keep it on track. Going back to the fact that the mind is not an instrument designed to ascertain the formless. What do I mean by this? The best car in the world, can it go on the ocean? I know some smart person who watched YouTube is going to say, yeah, they made a submarine.
Not yet.
Okay, not yet, right? Can the best ship go on land? So despite the car being the best, advanced, as much as our minds are, and the ship being extremely advanced, they cannot perform what they were not designed to do. In the same way, the mind cannot perform the contemplation of the formless because it is not designed to do so. It can only contemplate on what? Form, abstracts. And the second reason why Ishvara cannot be objectified is Ishvara is the very subject awareness which objectifies everything else, is the one because of which everything gets objectified. Remember a few sessions ago, we said there is no difference between Atman, the self, and Ishvara. Consciousness and Ishvara. Therefore, the question was, why can I not objectify Ishvara? Because Ishvara is that one because of which everything else gets objectified. For that reason, I cannot objectify Ishvara. You cannot objectify consciousness. Because the Nishkama Upasaka has an impure mind, what happens is this unobjectifiable consciousness gets temporarily objectified. Why? That's all it can do. That's all it can see. That's why we say temporarily objectified. So therefore, don't now think, oh, you're turning God into some form, into some images, into some altar. That doesn't matter. It is only temporary to soothe the mind, or for that mind which is only capable of relating to form. Attribute number 7, Aditya Varnam. The one who is bright and illuminator of everything like the sun. In the Gītā Upanishad, there's a statement that says, just like the one sun that illumines everything, God is the one consciousness because of which everybody is conscious. Just like the one sun that illumines the entire world, or just like this one light in this room that illumines this entire room, you turn off the light, there's nothing to see. In that same way, God is the one consciousness because of which everybody, including us, gets to be conscious. So what does this mean? We're not separate from Bhagavan. Is anyone not conscious here today? You see, the fact that you're smiling means what? You consciously heard my question, which means what? You are conscious. And what did I just say? Just like the one Son, God is the one consciousness because of which everybody is conscious of experience. Therefore, we are never separate from Bhagavan. Bhagavan is right here, right now as what? As your very awareness because of which you are conscious of these words, you're conscious of your body smiling, you're conscious of everything in your entire life. Therefore, God is right here, right now with you. We need not go elsewhere to discover Him. Hence, Ishvara is, in one summary, Chaitanya Swarupam, the all-illuminating principle, the all-illuminating consciousness principle. Attribute number 8, Tamasaha Parastat, the one who is unaffected by darkness. This is the difference between sunlight, or the limitation of sunlight, and Atman. Atman means consciousness. How is the sunlight limited? Okay, what is the sunlight? It illumines everything except one thing.
It doesn't illumine darkness.
Excellent, darkness. Swami Chinmaya had a nice story, and he said, someone told the sun god, the Surya Deva, that there is a very attractive girl called Miss Darkness. So the sun god then got curious and asked this fella and says, where can I find this girl, Miss Darkness? And the fella said, oh, she's on the other side of the earth. So then the sun god began chasing Miss Darkness. Today, sun is still chasing. That's why we have sunrise and sunset. In Sanskrit, darkness, Nisha is feminine gender and Suryaha is male gender. So, a limitation of the sun is, revision, it can illumine everything except the darkness. Whereas consciousness is superior light that can also illumine darkness. Do you want proof? Okay. Suppose that we turn off the light in this room and there's darkness. How do you know that? How do you know there's darkness? Because so that means what? You, awareness, are illumining even darkness. So no matter how powerful the sun is, you compare yourself, nobody compared to the huge sun, the sun cannot penetrate the walls. And yet we turn off the light and we go, oh, there's now night, there's darkness. Which means what? Consciousness, which you are, illumines even the existence of darkness. And now what is darkness compared to in the Shastra? Avidya, ignorance. That means what? You even illumine your own ignorance. Which means what? You are never ignorant. Isn't that what we're saying all our life? I don't know. I don't know how to speak French. I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to fix. I don't know. How do you know that you don't know? Because consciousness is the one superior light because of which it even illumines the existence of darkness, symbolic for ignorance. Therefore, nobody is ever ignorant just by the fact that we constantly validate, we constantly know about our lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge symbolizing darkness. So this means even if you say, I am ignorant of my nature, I am ignorant of my nature. In other words, what did you just say? I am ignorant of darkness. I'm ignorant of the truth. But obviously you're not ignorant because you just illumined that fact. So this means you are never ever ignorant. You're actually already free. So this is what moksha means. The fact that you constantly know about everything, including the things that you don't know, implies what? Consciousness which you are is never limited by ignorance. Conclusion is this Nishkama Upasaka, thus having ascertained these 8 attributes of Ishvara, meditates on these 8 attributes at the time of death, and for that reason the consequence is Kramamukti, liberation after death. going to Brahmaloka, which we will now explore in verse 10. One who thinks of the Lord at the time of death attains the Lord who is omniscient, the ruler of all, subtler than atom, the sustainer of all, incomprehensible, effulgent like the sun, and beyond ignorance. Prayana kale manasa chalena, bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva, brevor matye pranam avesha samyak, satam param purusham upaiti divyam. What specifically does this Nishkama Upasaka do at the time of death? We want to now get the specific details. What exactly do I do when I'm dying? That's what we're now going to discuss in the next 4 verses. Answer: Brivor matye pranamaveshya. Bring prana between the eyebrows. In the Katha Upanishad, it says, that one who is dying withdraws the prana, the life force, from all organs of the body. Now, if you're a meditator, if you've done chapter 6 Ashtanga Yoga or Hatha Yoga, you want to ask, how do you do this? Because as a meditator, we already know how to do this. It becomes quite natural to move prana throughout the body through mere mind power alone. And we've done chapter 6. Now, after having withdrawn prana from all organs of the body, then one must bring this prana to the heart, the hridayam. Now I know what you're going to say. Do you mean like the physical heart? The hridayam is a symbol for the core of the self, that place where there's no thoughts. That's why the Bhagavad Gita would now reinforce and say, bring the prana between the eyebrows. So you must bring the prana to the heart. Next, from the heart, you must direct this prana to a vein or a nerve called Sushumna Nadi. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita language, bring the prana between the eyebrows, because the axis or the spot between the eyebrows connects or touches the path of Sushumna Nadi. And that Sushumna Nadi goes to the top of the head, to a spot called Brahma Rantra. In yogic language is another name, Sahasrara, 1,000-petaled lotus. Brahma Rantra is a passage or a gateway to Brahma Loka that we talked about, the 14 lokas. Because remember, what's the interest of Nishkama Upasaka? Brahma Loka. Okay, plain English. Consciously direct the prana to the top of the head. How? As a yogi, you will know how. As an upasaka, you will know how to do this. So we're not going to discuss how. Now, from the Brahma Rantra, Rantra means passage or gateway, there is a route through which the jiva travels, which we will discuss in verse 26, which then takes the jivatma to Brahma Loka. How can you exercise so much control at the time of death? How do you do this? How do you redirect the prana, withdraw the prana, step 1, send the prana to the heart, and then redirect the prana through the Sushumna Nadi to the top of the head? How do you do all of this when the person's dying? Answer: Yoga Balena, by the strength of yoga practice. This means if a person wants Krama Mukti means after the person dies, they go to Brahmaloka, there they gain Jnana by Brahmaji, and then they are finally liberated from this world, from form. So if you want Krama Mukti, one needs to be a skilled yogi, an extremely disciplined, lifelong Ashtanga yogi. If you are a yogi, this will not sound weird or strange or absurd to you at all. It will be quite normal and you will be relating to everything I'm saying right now. By this yoga balena is how the yogis are able to modify their prana, which is beyond medical science. Sometimes science cannot explain how do you actually go into a state of nirvikalpa samadhi where the heart is beating like 5 times a minute and you still stay alive. How do you do this? By modifying, by changing the prana. So this is what a Nishkama Upasaka has practiced. A lot of skill, as you can see. They're very skilled to pull this off. So in other words, Krama Mukti requires 24/7 discipline. So if you were right now thinking that you can get away with Krama Mukti, go to Brahma Loka, just think about how much practice you need. Literally 24/7 upasana to attain liberation at Brahma Loka. So is it worth it? I'm not going to answer. That's up to you. Now it says also, Manasa Chalena. This upasaka yogi should have a steady, undistracted mind throughout life. This means if one's mind is distracted easily, suppose someone walks into the door and then suddenly you start looking, who's that? You're distracted. A yogi of this kind of caliber does not get distracted by even a loud noise or by other people talking. Their mind is extremely disciplined. Now, how do they do this? Yoga balena, by the strength of yoga practice. In addition, bhaktya yuktaha. This upasaka, furthermore, must be endowed with total devotion towards me. Me means Ishvara speaking, Krishna speaking, representing Ishvara. And throughout such upasana, the person will do what? The answer is Saha Param Purusham Divyam Upaiti. So this upasaka will attain the Lord through Krama Mukti. What kind of Lord? We spoke about last week. The one who is Purushaha. If you remember the word Purushaha, the one who is the indweller of all. That means the indweller of everything, of everyone. The one who fills up the whole creation with what? Matter. Everything you see around you, apara prakriti. The one who is limitless and whose nature is consciousness. That Lord will be attained by this Nishkama Upasaka, by what's called Krama Mukti. At the time of death, having properly brought the prana between the eyebrows by the power of yoga, with an undistracted mind endowed with devotion, as a result, one attains that divine supreme Lord. Yadaksharam Veda Vido Vadanti Vishanti Yatayo Vitaragaha Yadi Chanto Brahmacharyam Charanti Tatte Padam Sangrahena Pravakshye. Now Krishna will speak about the Nishkama Upasaka on the board who is 100% committed to liberation of Ishvara. So, what we can learn from this is to see what it means to be truly committed to God. We all speak about I'm committed here, I'm committed there, but now we will see what it really means to be committed and devoted to Bhagavan only. So we will first now describe the word committed, because I said committed. So what does committed mean? Yadaksharam Veda Vido Vadanti. So those ones who have studied the Vedas, the scriptures, and ascertained that Ishvara is the highest reality, Aksharam, imperishable, and also know that Ishvara is the one inexhaustible source of all joys, all happiness, all infinite security, all fullness. Furthermore, Vishanti Yad Yataha. So those ones that I just described. Furthermore, those who pursue the spiritual goal as the sole purpose in life single-pointedly to the exclusion of everything else, they are called sannyasa. What does sannyasa mean? The one whose priority, number one in life, is nothing but spiritual liberation. Therefore, if your sole goal in life, you understand the only reason why I'm born, why I exist as a person in this world is to ascertain my highest nature, then that as a female makes you a sannyasini, as a male that makes you a sannyasa. We're not talking about a sannyasa, the one who has gone external, who has left the world. We're talking about a home, ordinary person who lives with family, and despite living with family, attending to the duty, their sole focus is on God. That makes you a sannyasa. Now, what is this sannyasa's qualification that I just spoke of? So now you should match this qualification to see how well you perform. It says vita ragaha. Ragaha, you mean desires, a lot of desires. So vita means turned away from limited, small goals or desires, from finite goals and desires. For example, I want to make a lot of money. Is that unlimited desire or limited desire? Does that now mean I shouldn't make money at all? No, it just means just support yourself generally, but never get lost in something that has no infinite value, no infinite benefit. Also, because they have in time discovered the limitation of sukha dukkha mixture, that means every experience provides what? A little bit of happiness, a little bit of pain. It is never eternal happiness on earth. Does anyone have eternal happiness here? They say, you're going to find everlasting happiness when you find everlasting love. Is that true? Yeah. In other words, no, because the nature of apara prakriti, matter, is for every plus there's a minus. They're on the one same coin. Therefore, having ascertained sukha dukkha mixture disadvantage, advantage working together, I have now stopped chasing finite desires. And also they've realized that all finite desires, i.e. those which pertain to what? Apara prakriti, form, decay, and degrade over time. In other words, whatever I get, even if it is a person or my own child, that also is subject to what? Decay and degrading. So therefore we can start to see the importance of not being attached to worldly matter. Because I'm getting attached to what? That which decays and degrades. I'm not now saying go and put the world away. I'm just saying keep your eye on the fact that everything in this world is constantly decaying. Furthermore, their only goal, their only conclusion as a result of what I just said is, what's the only thing that's worth pursuing in this world? That which doesn't decay, para prakriti. On the basis of that, they have concluded the only principle worth summoning, instigating, pursuing is consciousness, my infinite nature. Now also remember, we're speaking about a nishkama upasaka. For them, when I say consciousness, are they ascertaining the real definition of consciousness? No. To them, therefore, paraprakriti or consciousness is represented as a form. Remember, we're in chapter 8. Whenever I speak consciousness to this person, the highest reality, Brahman, Satchidananda, is still a symbol. It is still something that I can only grasp with my 5 senses. When we get to chapter 9, then we'll speak about someone who, with a subtle mind, that can ascertain consciousness without needing to grasp onto it. Okay, now we will ask, how is this Nishkama Upasaka's life transformed as a result of understanding that the only goal worth pursuing is Ishvara? If you match this, you're on a good track. Remember, this is all about us. We're comparing ourselves with an extremely devoted bhakta. Then Krishna says, Yadi chanto brahmacharyam charanti. The upasaka follows a life of brahmacharyam. What does brahmacharyam mean? The one who studies scriptures. Brahma in this case means scriptures. Charyam, the 2 words put together, means dwelling in the scriptures. So I'm going to ask you, are you studying the scriptures?
Yes.
Good. Is scriptures a part of your life?
Yes.
Good. So therefore, you're on the right track. So see how we're comparing. If now we're listening to this and we go, oh, it all sounds good. Someone's sitting in the front of a class speaking about all this. But if you're not doing it, then that's where the real work comes. Why do they dwell in the scriptures? Why would you dwell in the scriptures all day long or most of the day or, make it a part of your life? What would motivate you to do that? Excellent. So in other words, what Madhu just said is the scriptures, the Shastra is that place where by reading it, where by contemplating on it, I get reminded of the highest ultimate reality. The highest ultimate reality is not in science, it is not in biology, chemistry, or anywhere else in the world, where is the only place where you can find the absolute highest description of truth. The Vedas, the Upanishads, Vedanta. Therefore, why do they dwell in the scriptures? Because Scriptures alone reveal the nature of you, who you are. For that reason, they keep going back to the scriptures. Why? To be reminded, who am I? Finally, aham samgrahena pravakshye. I shall define briefly this Ishvara to you, Arjuna. But he's not going to do that now. He's going to do that in verse 20 to 22. We're only in verse 11 now. I will tell you briefly about that end, that final, that highest, which does not decline or deteriorate, about which the knowers of the Veda talk about. That means the knowers of this truth, the rishis, which the renunciates, sannyasis and sannyasinis, free from desire, enter, and desiring, which people follow a life of study and discipline. So in other words, they are completely absorbed in the scriptures. That's the highest qualification for someone who is 100% devoted to moksha. You love the scriptures. You can't help it. You're like obsessed. Got no life except the scriptures. Like someone's like, what's wrong with you? I don't know. I can't help it. I just love reading about this. I just love reading about all this. So therefore, if you love reading, if you're in books, not just any books, I'm talking about books that remind you specifically of who you are, then that is an extremely good sign. Sarvadvarani samyamya manohrdini rudhyacha murtnyadhayat manaf pranam astito yogadharanam. Since the formless God is difficult to perceive, we've established that because it's attributeless, the scriptures will present a concrete symbol to help us visualize the formless. The scriptures are going to do that for us. This concrete symbol is called alambanam. What does this mean? Support, foundation, cause, basis. If it's Krishna, then Krishna becomes Krishna alambanam. That means Krishna is the basis which I use to ascertain, to contemplate on the infinite. Now this alambanam has two types, and this will depend on your personality. Okay, so this is also relating to you. To whom do I devote, like what kind of a symbol do I use? So if you're asking, you know, I don't know, like what do I actually use to devote to? Do I use a symbol? Do I use a person? Do I use a picture? What do I put on my altar? This is going to answer that question. The first one is called pratima, image or idol. This means the entire idol, the entire Ishta Devata, the entire personal deity, including sometimes they hold weapons like the trident. What does the trident indicate? Triguna. I am the master of the Triguna. Who is the master of the Triguna? What is Triguna? Maya. Therefore, Ishvara is the master of the Triguna. Okay, so this means if Krishna is your Ishta Devata, or Rama, or Vishnu, or Shiva, or Jesus, or Buddha, it doesn't really matter. We do not mind who is, that's not the point. Suppose Krishna is your personal deity, then we say Krishna is your Pratima Alambanam. In other words, Krishna is the supporting idol which represents the infinite. If Jesus, then we say Jesus Pratima Alambanam. In other words, Jesus is the supporting, the foundation, which represents what? The infinite. So they all represent what? Infinite. The second type is pratika. This means part or portion. So suppose that you don't relate to a person, to a Vishnu or a Ganapati or whoever it is. Suppose you just don't relate with an entire image, an entire appearance. Then what is it like that you're going to relate with? A part, something that represents the infinite. For example, Shiva Linga. You know this one? Yeah, we know this one. So the linga means sign, S-I-G-N, sign. Sign of what? For example, the visible sign of fire represents the invisible fire. So therefore I can see the smoke, but I can't see the fire. I can see the linga, but I can't see Shiva. Therefore, Shiva Linga. What does Shiva represent? Paramatma, the highest reality. Therefore, Linga is a sign which represents the highest reality, Parameshwara or Paramatma. Fire also represents, for some people, why do we have yajna? Why do we throw things into a fire? Fire represents that which burns, destroys whatever I throw into it. If I throw my ignorance into the fire, then my ignorance gets destroyed. Therefore, for some people, it is simply as fire, because fire to them represents what? The destroyer of ignorance. So we can see how there's a distinction between pratima and pratika, an entire person, an entire image, and just one single symbol. Now, scriptures, just to get this straight, allow any kind of alambanam. We're not restricted. We just say, if you don't, devote to Krishna, something, you're not devoting to God. This is not what the scriptures say. Only a man's mind will say this, according to their likes and dislikes. Scriptures allow all worship, as long as it points to the one infinite. Now, one of the most important alambanam in all scriptures is what's called omkara. And omkara is meditation on the Lord, where the limitless Lord is invoked in the Om. So I'm meditating on Om, which represents the limitless Lord. So I invoke the limitless Lord in Om. And this omkara is talked about in almost every single Upanishad. So that is how important this specific omkara upasana is. And Krishna is going to borrow this omkara upasana in verse 12 and verse 13. Are you awake right now?
Yeah.
Do you dream?
Yeah.
Do you sleep?
Yes.
When I say sleep, am I talking about your dream, or am I talking about that place where there's nothing? How do you know about these three states? Do we all know about the waking? Yeah, you know, like you're awake now. Do we all know that we dream? Yeah? Do we all know that we sleep? How do you know that?
Because we wake up, so we know we slept.
Because we're aware of each of them.
We're aware of
Because
the nothingness, that we remember the nothingness.
Yeah. Because remember the question that I asked you, that place where there's nothing, are you going to dispute me that? Are you going to say, no, there's something there? If you say that, if you say there's something there, are you referring to sleep or are you referring to dream? Dream. So when I say sleep, is that place where there's nothing, there's just nothing to know, it's just darkness. So the fact that you know there's nothing in deep sleep means what? You pervade the waking, because you said you do know about the waking. You pervade the dream, because you said you also dream. And you pervade the sleep. Why do you pervade? Where's the proof that you pervade the sleep?
Because you wake up again.
Not that. There's another proof to that. I said the question, what is in deep sleep?
nothing.
Nothing. How do you know there's nothing? Because you are there. You're pervading deep sleep. And upon waking, then we can infer based on my memory that there was nothing there, I can say there's nothing there. Which means what? You are pervading the waking, you're pervading the deep sleep, and you're pervading the dream and the deep sleep. Is there a fourth place other than this, other than these three?
No.
So what is our experience then? Our entire life is what? Waking, dream, deep sleep. How many times have you woken up? Countless. How many times have you dreamt? Countless. How many times have you slept? Countless. In other words, you pervade every single state. That's why you can say countless to every single one of them. So now, how does this tie in with Omkara? Because I said Omkara Upasana is the most common Upasana in all the Upanishads. Omkara means what? Before I answer, remember the akshara mala, the garland, like mala? Yeah. Mala. Ma. Is ma ever going to be pa, la, ra, va? It's always going to be what? Ma. It never changes. La never changes. It's always going to be la. In other words, the sound never changes. But now, what happens when I stop saying ma? Where does that ma go back into? Silence. So therefore, even the akshara, the character, the alphabet, even that, the sound goes back where? Into silence. Where is ma when I'm not saying ma? Where is it?
Potential.
Yeah, it's in potential. But so this means what? It's resting on a substratum. And then it arises out of the substratum. How? When I instigate it through maya, called ma, called a thought called ma. And then goes back where? Back into the substratum whence it came from. So how does this now connect to the Omkara Upasana? The fact that you know about the waking, dream, and deep sleep implies that you are the substratum into which every waking state dissolves, into every waking state uproots itself when you wake up. Hello, the world comes back. Every dream state arises from, goes back into, and even sleep arises from and goes back into. Why do I say all of them arise from and go back into you? When you wake up, does someone else wake up for you, or do you wake up? You wake up. So what? The world comes out of whom? You. So the world comes out of what? You, the substratum, just like ma comes out of where? The substratum which was there prior to when the ma originated. And when I stop saying ma, when I go back to sleep, it remains where? In the substratum. How do we know? Because then we wake up again, and therefore the world arises again. So now what is this Omkara Upasana? How do you now meditate on the fact that the infinite Ishvara is the Omkara? Can you see the connection? The connection is what? Infinite, what I say Ishvara is Atman, consciousness, the substratum. Therefore, I meditate on the fact that Ishvara is always present no matter what. It is imperishable. That's why I call it Aksharam. So therefore, to meditate on Omkara is to meditate on the fact that the person was always available to know about these three states. Therefore, the person, him or herself, is the substratum. That's what you meditate on at the time of death. Now I will summarize this. You need to have a concrete symbol of God. The Nishkama Upasaka needs to have a concrete symbol of God. Instruction 1. And meditate or contemplate on that one throughout life and at the time of death. And then what happens near physical departure of this person or of us as body, mind, intellects? It says, Sarvadvarani samyamya. Withdraw from all sense organs. This is called pratyahara in Ashtanga Yoga, withdrawing all the senses. Now, what is the reason for withdrawing? Why should I withdraw from all organs at the time of death? Whenever your senses are opened, the world enters without your permission. Open your eyes. Whatever we see, it enters our minds without our permission. Then what? It instantly triggers a line of thinking that corresponds with what I am seeing. I open my eyes, I see a nightclub. I can't help it. I'm going to start thinking what? Desirous thoughts. I open my eyes and I see reverential symbols. I can't help it. My mind goes to what? Ishvara. Therefore, the world enters our senses without our permission, and because it does so, it modifies our thinking whether we like it or not. For that reason, the person is not going to feel like remembering Ishvara if the environment does not represent infinity. If they got someone around that represents, all the memories of fighting and arguments and unforgiven thoughts, then the mind is going to go towards what? those thoughts. And that's not what we want. So therefore, be careful what environment you expose yourself to. This is the human psychological weakness. No matter how disciplined we are, you just offer one single image on the board that represents goriness or war, and we all instantly what? Feel unwell. We can't help it. And we present an image of beauty like a rainbow or a child or something, and we all instantly, innocently feel good. So therefore, be careful what the environment is presenting to us every day. And for this reason that I just explained, Mano Hrdi, bring the mind to the heart. Then from the heart, Hrdi Nirutya Cha Murtni Adhaya Atmanaha Pranam. Bring the prana to the top of the head, focusing between the eyebrows. What should the mind be doing at the time of departure? I'm talking about the exact time of departure, like last breath. This is it. I'm leaving the world. Astitaha yoga dharanam. Dharanam means concentration. Okay, so it has something to do with concentration. Can you infer what that is? Last breath.
Concentrate your attention on the sahasrara.
Okay, and also there's something else. Okay, we'll translate. Practice yogic concentration called dharana, specifically in this case, Omkara Upasanam. Now, disclaimer, it doesn't have to be Omkara Upasanam. Whatever the name of your deity is, that's the one you focus on. If the name is Rama, then you focus on, you dwell on, you concentrate on Rama. If it's Buddha, then you focus on, you concentrate on, you dwell on Buddha. Why? Because Buddha represents, for you, the highest. And what else do? You utter your personal God, your Ishta Devata, in the last breath. So, for example, the Omkara Upasanam will utter what? Om. Actually, in the Mahabharata, the sage was killed, was bowed accidentally by Pandu in the forest. You know this scene? And the sage then cursed Pandu that when he embraces his wife, he will die. And when the last word that the sage said was Om, and he died. If your Ishta Devata is Buddha, then what do you say in your last breath? Yeah. If it's Jesus, Jesus. If it's Rama, Rama. Krishna, someone else. Okay? So you practice that. Now, what does a worldly person utter who doesn't have this practice?
Not yet.
I guess. Yeah. So I'm talking about a Sakama Upasaka, the one who either focuses on Kama, that means worldly desires, Artha, wealth, or Dharma, virtues. Actually, there's a story. To answer this question, a worldly person was about to die. And Parvati asked Shiva to please bless the man because he's leaving. Now, before I go forward, you're going to say, what is Parvati, what is Shiva? Okay. Parvati symbolizes the universal mother, Maya. Shiva symbolizes the universal father, Paraprakriti or Parameshwara. Also, you will see a symbolism often in India whereby the Shiva linga is entering a Parvati yoni. And often those who do not know the symbolism will unfortunately turn this into a sexual expression. It's got nothing to do with that. Shiva linga represents what? Parameshwara, Paraprakriti equals consciousness, who impregnates the Parvati yoni. Yoni means what? Womb or place of gestation. So when consciousness impregnates the womb or place of gestation, what comes out? Life. Just like when a man impregnates the woman, what comes out? Life, called baby. So same idea. So continuing. Now Parameshwara, Shiva, said, no, he doesn't want us. He's not interested. He only wants world objects. So Parvati said, nevertheless, have some consideration for the man and please bless him. So Parameshwara or Shiva said, okay, how about we make a deal? We will both get close to this man and we will listen to his last words. If he says Amma, which means mother, then you help him. That means Parvati helps him. If he utters Appa, then I will help him, because Appa means father. So, right now there's a symbolic meaning in this, and that is both Parameshwara and Parvati have made a contract to what? Always be available to everyone at all times. That's the symbolism. Now, the man was about to die, and he utters Ah. Now they're confused because Ah sounds both like Appa and Amma. They both start with Ah. So now they continue waiting, and finally the man says Ayo, which means alas, which means unfortunately, oh no, unluckily, why me? Not now. And now what does Parameshwara say to Parvati? He simply smiles and says, even if both of us are fully ready to rescue anyone at any time, because remember they made a contract, even if we're ready all the time, most humanity, most people in the world at any point of time do not want us, do not want God. They want what? Worldly objects. You don't say ayo, in other words, alas, unless you're thinking about something that I'm going to miss out on. Oh no, I'm going to lose my children, my wife, my money, so on. And that's the truth of the samsara. Even if God is available 24/7 to help us, most of us are so trained to look at the finite objects in this world that we outright reject Him in our life. Omityeka ksharam brahma vyaharan mam anusmaran yaf prayatitya jandeham sayati paramam gatim. So verse 12, we ended with the story how very few ever want Ishvara, despite Ishvara being available 24/7. So now verse 13 continues, and it's going to ask, what does the Nishkama Upasaka, who performs this Omkara Upasana, what specifically do they do at the time of death? We're going into more specifics. Firstly, we will define what the word Nishkama Upasaka means. We've already done that at the beginning, but I'm going to refresh your memory. Remember, a Nishkama Upasaka, number one, has never come to Nirguna Ishvara. They have not ascertained the nature of the self as consciousness. It's still an intellectual thought. It's still an idea. It is not a living, assimilated reality. And they are considered, according to Vedanta, a Ajnani. Ajnani means not wise person, not liberated yet. Okay, they're still, it's still intellectual at this point. And they haven't apprehended the oneness between Jivatma and Paramatma. They haven't, like, how is it that that my nature is the same as the nature of the total? How is that? I understand that intellectually. I've heard that in the Shastra. I've heard many Swamis say that. I've heard that on YouTube. But how is that true for me? I just don't feel that. I don't experience that. So this is the kind of language that a Nishkama Upasaka is still saying. Why? Because their intellect is still gross. It's still not subtle. They haven't done a lot of works yet to make it subtle. And they are extremely proficient experts at yoga, upasana. Okay? Because remember, I said before, 24/7 to constantly keep your mind, especially at the time of death. So one thing to note is an aparoksha jnani. What does this mean? The one who has ascertained direct knowledge, that means a jivan muktaha, does not need to bother about krama mukti. because Krama Mukti is going to Brahmaloka in order to get the knowledge. And Aparoksha Jnani is the one who has ascertained this while living, which is ideal, how to remove ignorance. So they don't need to worry about this Krama. They're done. Like once the body dies, there's no coming back. So Aparoksha Jnani is free from chapter 8. So now, again, what does a Nishkama Upasaka do at the time of last breath? Krishna is going to say, Omit Yekaksharam, Omit Yekaksharam Brahma. He or she utters a, Eka means one, utters a one-word syllable Om, which represents what? Brahman, the highest reality, the supreme nature. So this means that whatever you have practiced, you utter what? That name, Jesus, die, Buddha, die, whatever it is, die. That's how to die. So throughout this utterance of whatever that name is for you, Anusmaran, he or she thus remembers Bhagavan, because their name represents Bhagavan, common sense. So only Bhagavan, not family. Why is this the case? This is an important one. Why they did not think about the family despite their family being with them 24/7 for their whole life? Why would they only think about Bhagavan? Are they being rude? Are they being cold? Then why do they only think about Bhagavan and not those who are next to them at that crucial moment?
Because they're going to be one with Bhagavan.
Yeah, good.
That's where they're going now.
Excellent. In other words, owning to what they have ascertained, they have now concluded that nobody in this crucial moment can help me except that one to whom I came from, because I am now going back to that one also. Then what happens is Yaha Prayati. After dying, one travels, the Jivatma travels to or is assisted by deities. I know you're going to say what kind of deities. We will speak about that in verse 20 plus. Through a special path. Again, what is a special path? Verse 20 onwards. Now, what exactly travels when the person dies? Okay, let's do deduction. Does the physical body, Stula Sharira, travel? No, because we know it's obvious. The body stays there, it doesn't fly off somewhere. Does Atman travel?
Yes.
No, wait, careful. I'm going to say this. What is Atman? Define Atman for me.
Consciousness.
Atman is Brahman.
Good. Does Atman travel?
No.
No, but it's there. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Now, why did you say yes? Because we have to address this error now. Okay, what is Atman? One consciousness of the entire existence. So if Atman traveled, then if one person dies and Atman travels, then we will all fall unconscious. But we remain fully conscious, don't we? So therefore, Atman cannot travel. Why? Because consciousness, para prakriti, is the one substance of the entire existence. So therefore, we have deduced, cannot be the physical body, cannot be Atman. What travels? Awareness. Awareness equals Atman. Awareness doesn't travel. Causal and
Subtle body.
subtle body. Is that clear now? Okay. So what travels exactly? That which contains their samskaras, vasanas, their karmas. That's what travels.
How does it travel?
First class.
Okay, no, that's a good question. We will discuss that verse 20 plus by a certain path and also by deities that will help us to find, because usually people when they die near death experience, they will always say, there's someone to assist me. So we will analyze what is that, who are these deities that are actually assisting us towards a certain trajectory. Okay, so someone said awareness. Awareness does not travel. Why? Because awareness equals aparaprakriti equals consciousness equals Brahman. When a person dies, do I die? No, I watch the person dying. So therefore, nothing happened to existence. Something happened only to what? The physical body, and we don't see the sukshma sharira, but something also is happening to the sukshma sharira, to the subtle body. It is traveling to its next trajectory. In this case, Brahmaloka. Now, travels where? Krishna is going to say, Sayati Paramam Gatim. The Jivatma travels to the highest goal in life, being, for him or her, Krama Mukti, where? at Brahmaloka. Closing all gates of perception and withdrawing the mind into the heart, to the core of the self, placing his or her breath at the top of his or her head, being the one who remains holding his breath by yoga, that means pranayama is involved, chanting the single syllable Om, or the name of your deity, which is Brahman, giving up the body, the one who departs, remembering me, goes to the most exalted end. Ananya cheta satatam yo mam smarati nityashaha tasyaham sulabhav partha nitya yuktasya yoginaha.
I was just thinking, what if you got dementia and you've forgotten all these things?
So you better ascertain self-knowledge before that happens, okay? Because then I will forget about how to actually inquire, how to perform viveka. Like what is the known, what is the unknown, what's the knower, what is the known. I will forget all that. Therefore, I will lose the ability to inquire. Therefore, do this really quickly. Time's running out. Some motivation there, right? Question to start verse 14. How is so much conscious control or of this upasana possible at the time of death? As I said before, as this question. Because the person is weak, they're vulnerable. And you know, even when the body's sick, you don't think about these things. You don't think about Vedanta, or you just think about, you're just so introverted, like, oh, me. That's all we think about. And that's just sick, let alone when we're, dying. Again, Krishna is going to say, yoga balena. In other words, by this dedicated past practice, one spontaneously remembers me. A newborn mother leaves her child at home. She's busy at work, attending duties at work. She's thinking about what? Her child, her baby. How is she able to do both things at the same time? Because her value, her vision is on the child in the back of her mind, and she's still able to perform the work. So therefore, it is indeed possible to remember Ishvara, to remember the baby while I'm busy dying as a person. That's why Krishna says, by dedicated past practice. It's very easy. It's just spontaneous. It just comes because you've done it before. Now, what specifically caused this upasaka to remember Ishvara at the time of death? We want to get into this upasaka's mind and see what specifically would they have to think in order to think about the baby or God at the time of death. So they have first recognized that everyone and everything to which you are associated to which you love, belongs to whom? God. It does not belong to you, because you did not create one single thing here. We didn't even create our own bodies. In other words, they have also recognized that the field that we are born in is provided so that I can understand the very fact that everything here is God's alone, not mine. That's the first important understanding. You don't own the money that you have. You don't own your wife, your husband, your children. You don't own anything. The jewelry that we have, the house, the car, the status. We don't own anything here. We all what? Gained it through other people. But other people also did not get it created themselves. They also gained it from someone else. So therefore, nothing here is yours. First important lesson. So therefore, they have learned not to seek infinite security from finite objects. They've only learned to seek infinite security from whom? That one who is infinite, Ishvara. In other words, what else did they say? I only came to this world for one single purpose. We're talking about a Nishkama Upasaka, highly devoted to Bhagavan. Only one single purpose, liberation. That's it. Everything else is secondary. This is primary. And therefore, I did not come here to get enmeshed or entangled in more worldly stuff. Because the fact is, we have done that for beginningless lifetimes. How is one more lifetime of being enmeshed going to make any difference? The fact that we are born means what? We have done this endless times all over again. Therefore, the Upasaka has ascertained this. I'm not here to get enmeshed all over again. This is it. This is the life when I will gain liberation. It's a strong, firm stance that they're putting them to themselves. As a result of having recognized this that I've just spoken, what does the Upasaka do? They are not therefore worried about family or worldly possessions while nearing death. Why? Because you only worry if you believe what? It is important. They matter to you or you matter to them. But you have ascertained what? All objects are being taken care of by God alone. Therefore, for that reason, I don't have to worry about them because I actually make no real difference. Do you create the air that people breathe? No. They will continue breathing air, so therefore I don't have to worry about it. In fact, this is what Shastra also says, very important point. We often believe that relatives, our relatives, are in a good condition because of what? Us. But what does the Shastra say? They are in a good condition in spite of you. Your family actually doesn't need you. And we get entangled so much and we think, my family needs me, and for that reason, I then need to be there for them. The fact is, your family doesn't need you. Why? Because your family is also taken care of by Bhagavan, not you. Our ego likes to believe that we make a difference. But the fact is, if any one of us went today or tomorrow, the family would cry, but the fact is they would continue their life just like any other day. And we have to firstly understand this. The world doesn't need you. You're like a leaf that falls off a tree where nobody even notices. The ego doesn't want to hear this, but we need to be objective about the fact that this is just another body to what? Discover its true nature and leave this world of appearance. This is not meant to insult, it's just meant to provide an objective view that we're not that important, but our ego makes it appear like we're special, we're needed. We're not. The world is fine without us. Because we have ascertained this, we don't worry about what? Family at the time of death. So therefore, it's your job to acknowledge this so that we don't worry about family. Why? Because family is more matter. If I think about matter, I get reborn in another world of matter.
Just one clarification. Our subtle body moves, goes up, which carries our karma and sanskaras.
Yeah.
And however, God says, if you remember me, then you come within me. So what happens to those sanskaras and all that? They all get burned.
They get burned because this person has done upasana, get enough punyam in order to go to Brahmaloka. If they haven't done that, then it will just carry over to what? A better family on earth. So they can still fail, remember? Because there's no guarantee you go to Brahmaloka. That's why we shouldn't now go, oh, this is my path. There's no guarantee. Most, 99.999% get simply reborn on earth in a much better environment, according to the last life's punya karma. So this person, in one word, has ascertained this. Nothing here is mine. You need to acknowledge that. Nothing here is yours, including your family, your wife, your husband, your children. Nothing's yours. If you have successfully done that, then you're not going to worry about your family at the time of death. Now, having realized this, Krishna says, Yaha mam smarati nitya shaha. As a result, the person remembers me all the time. What have they ascertained in order to remember Ishvara all the time? First of all, they have understood that Ishvara represents the total. The total means nothing is excluded. You can't say what about, because when I say the total, it means the total. And no individual is apart from the total. So if I say the total, but I exclude myself from the total, is the total the total? No. This is what we often, the mistake that we make. We call the total out there except me. So the total also includes the very person that's now speaking and the very person that's now listening. And just like no wave is separate from the ocean? Is any wave separate from the ocean? In that, why is it not separate? Because every wave gains its birth out of what? The one ocean, is sustained by the one ocean, and goes back to none other than the one ocean. So just like the one wave is born out of the ocean, it is thus not separate from the ocean. So now this further tells us why you're not separate from God. So therefore, we are all part of the whole. What happens if a wave claims existence separate from the total, from the ocean? Is that the ocean's problem, or is that the wave's problem? Suppose someone here says, I don't believe any of this Satchidananda, Brahman, all this, higher knowledge. Is that my problem, or is that your problem? It's the problem of the mind of that person who made that claim. But the fact is, if someone now goes and says, this is all bogus teaching, that's their ignorance. So the fact is, even if, now why did I make this statement? Suppose a wave is part of, every wave is part of the ocean, and the wave says, no, I'm not part of the ocean. Is that true? No. So that means the ignorance belongs to none other than the wave. It is not problem of another wave or the entire ocean. So the wave, as a result, knows what? That it is permanently always related to the ocean. Why? Because every wave comes from the ocean, lives or exists because of the ocean's existence, and goes to none other than the very same source from whence it came. And then again, the wave is born out of what? The same ocean, not from some different ocean. So this is what the person has ascertained so far. And what else have they come to conclude? That the only permanent relationship that I have is only with what? The ocean. Do you have a permanent relationship with incidental temporary waves? No, you don't have a permanent. So this means what in practical language? Continue your temporary relationship with other spouse wave, with the children wave, with the employee wave, with the employer wave, with the teacher, friend wave, mother wave, father wave, child wave. But always remember that the fundamental relationship is always with the one single ocean. My only true relationship is with God, nothing else. Everything else is there, it's part of God. But it is only what? Incidental, it is temporary. It goes back into the ocean as much as this person also goes into the ocean. Ananya chetaha. Without being distracted by the incidental waves, like your mom, your dad, your husband, your wife, your child, without being distracted. Why are you not distracted? Go back to the wave ocean analogy.
Yeah, because you're part of Brahman.
Excellent. So for that reason, I have no need to be. Before, they meant, you're also right, they meant something to me. And they still do, but the fact is they're also going to go back to that same source from whence I'm going now, as a dying person. So without being distracted by the incidental roles of other waves, as a result, he or she remembers me in the background. How? Because they have been doing that for their whole life. Therefore, the spontaneous subconscious mind automatically bubbles that up when the person is dying. How else is this possible? We have used the analogy last week. The bus tour sightseeing pauses for a short break, and we all get off the bus tour. And the coach says, 2 hours, please, you need to come back. What do? We have a full experience of that time, of that environment, of seeing the locals, of tasting the food. But throughout every single experience, where's our mind? Get back on the bus. Why? Why is it on the back end of the bus? Because the bus is that vehicle which is meant to take me further onto where I'm supposed to go. For that reason, I never forget Ishvara, because Ishvara's teaching, Ishvara's scriptures, is that vehicle which is meant to what? Take me further to the highest reality. Finally, for such a yogi, upasaka, that means they're a yogi, aham sulabhaha, I am, says Krishna, Krishna represents Bhagavan, I am the easiest Purusha to remember. How? Just like if you value money as the number one purpose in life, even if we're feeling miserable, what are we going to remember? Money. Whatever we value the most is what we remember the most. You place number one value on Bhagavan, then when we are the weakest, most vulnerable on our deathbeds, what are we going to remember? Bhagavan. So it's the same principle. Arjuna, the one who has a mind that sees no other, that mind who remembers me constantly, for that yogi who is always united with me, I am easily gained. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.